Hello, EduMagicians. Welcome to the EduMagic podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of EduMagic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
I'm Stephanie Howe, co-host of Get Inspired and Innovate, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey EduMagicians, it's Sam, and before we start into this episode, I want to share with you about an amazing resource. It's called the Educator Candidate Member Portal. AAEE provides you with resources such as virtual job fairs, a job board, interview tips and prep, resume building, webinars. You can even get a copy of the Job Search Handbook digitally. So head on over to aaee.org and create your free Educator Candidate Member account today. Friends, one more thing before we get started. This episode is brought to you by my new course, Digital Portfolios from Scratch to Interview Ready. Head on over to sfessich.com/courses for more information about this self-paced, hands-on virtual workshop. Hello, EduMagicians, and welcome back to another episode of the EduMagic podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and today I have with me the editors of the New Teacher's Guide to Overcoming Common Challenges, curated advice from award-winning educators. And this book was edited by Anna Quinzo Zaffron and Beth Wilkins. And I also have a contributing author who contributed 2 articles to this book, Leanna Malinowski. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Hi there, Sam. Good to be here.
Thanks, Sam.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, I'm so excited to have you guys here. Let's jump right in. Now, this book has over 130 authors. What I love about your book, I'm just going to call it the New Teacher's Guide to Overcoming Common Challenges, is that it's so actionable. There's quick little snippets of content from your authors with action steps that new teachers and veteran teachers listening in the crowd today can put right into practice right away. And I truly enjoyed checking out the book. I loved just the quick reads of the articles. They're very easy to read. You can go to a certain section and really dive deep, like into classroom management. You can dive deep into teaching during a pandemic, which is what we're going to talk about during today's show, and everything in between. But I got to say, the PD, the professional development one, is probably one of my favorite sections because we know as teachers, we are lifelong learners. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you guys start sharing. And let's start with your teaching stories. Would you guys mind sharing a little bit about your teaching story, what brought you into education, and what keeps you in this ever-changing field of education? And Anna, let's start with you.
Certainly. Well, my teaching story started a really long time ago. I first started my career in 1977. I was 20 years old and started my first teaching job so I was teaching in the community where I lived, Coal City, Illinois, and started teaching there as a first grade, and taught first grade for 30 years. And then I wanted to stay in the building that I was in rather than moving to a different building. So I moved to third grade, and where I taught for 6 more years. I've also been the language arts coordinator for them for a period of time. And after I received my national board certification in 2009, I decided, you know what, I can do more. So I wanted to continue to have an impact on teachers and students. So I went and I earned my doctoral degree from Northern Illinois University. And since that time, since my retirement, I've been working with classroom teachers in many different ways.
Nice. Excellent. I love how your teaching story starts off with you were a first grade teacher, moved into third grade, and now you get your PhD and you're still working with
My EDD.
your EDD. I'm sorry, your EDD, and still working with classroom educators. That's awesome. And also national board certified because why not, right? Let's just add that in there. That's awesome.
And I'm renewed.
And what?
And renewed.
What? That's awesome. Very cool, Anna. Thank you so much. Beth, would you mind sharing your teaching story? What brought you into education and what keeps you here?
I knew I wanted to be a teacher since I was in middle school, and I actually was a band director. So my career path is a little different from most individuals. And I did that for almost 10 years, and I worked in different districts, and I worked in a rural school and in a suburban school, and then even moved into urban teaching. And I had some student teachers, and they were fantastic. And that's where I got the bug to work with new teachers. And I went on and like Anna, I got my doctoral degree and have worked at several state universities in different parts of the country, and still am so passionate about helping new teachers.
Absolutely. I can hear it in your voice. Yes, those new teachers, we all need help, but those new teachers, let's help raise and support them up during this school year, especially. Thank you so much, Beth, for sharing your story. And Leanna, you're a contributing author. You have 2 articles in this book. Can you share about your teaching story? What brought you into education? What keeps you here?
Sure. My story is a little bit different, but I'm happy to share it. I actually went to college at first to be a dance major out in Pennsylvania, and I had an injury. So that ended that. But the whole purpose for me being a dance major is I wanted to teach dance or do dance therapy and work with children. So I said, if I can't teach dance, I have to teach something. So that led to me transferring, obviously, back home in New Jersey to Kean University. And I mentioned that because I am a 3.5-time graduate from Kean, and I'm still highly connected to Kean. And even though I'm not a professor there, I hope maybe one day to be. I'm the associate counselor for the Delta Rho chapter of Kappa Delta Pi International Honor Society for Education. And I love working with the pre-service teachers in that chapter. My day job, as I call it, because I love working with my students, I'm a 13-year veteran teacher. And I have worked with first grade students. I've worked with multiply disabled students. And now I'm in second grade. I think this is my 4th year or 5th year in second grade, working with special ed, ESL, and ESL bilingual students. And I love them. So I feel like my passions in education are definitely split. I love my littles. I love literacy. I'm a certified reading specialist. So teaching reading is what I love to do all day. And then at nighttime, I love to work with pre-service teachers. So I knew I had to contribute to this book when Anna and Beth presented it, because any little bit of knowledge I have that can help pre-service teachers, I want to be there and help support them because they're so essential to our field.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better. They are so essential to our field, raising up that next generation of educators of excellence. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your stories. You all came to education in lots of different ways. And I think that just goes to show our listeners today that you can come into teaching through lots of different routes and lots of different avenues. But, teaching's going to get a hold of you. If you are meant to be a teacher, it's going to get a hold of you and it's going to keep you there. So let's talk about the book. Anna and Beth, what inspired you to write this book for new teachers? Why now, and what inspired you?
For me, it's about the fact that when we see, research tells us that out of every 10 new teachers within 5 years, half of them will leave the profession. So I see young teachers, new teachers who have spent so much of their money. They've invested 4 years of their lives. They've worked hard to become a teacher. So what in the institution fails them to be able to follow their dreams? So any way that we, as the community of educators, can support them, that's what we want to do. That's why we felt that this book was important. Beth, you have some other ideas to share too.
We were talking to a lot of new teachers. We went to the KDP conference and we literally talked to over 200 pre-service and new teachers. And we were wondering what was keeping them up at night.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that made them, what was causing them concern as a new teacher? What were some of the challenges they were facing? And they shared very openly with us about that. And they also talked about the technologies, where they were going for support, Instagram, Twitter. They want those just-in-time resources. So we took that into consideration when we put the book together. And it was a real motivation for us to move forward with the book, but in a different way than most books, because we wanted to fold in the social media piece and this notion of we are all a community of learners and new teachers and veteran teachers all supporting each other.
Absolutely. We are a community of learners. Teachers are lifelong learners. And I love that you have folded that into, like you say, folded that into your book. Thank you so much for sharing that inspiration. And I love how you went direct to the source, new teachers, future educators. What is keeping you up at night? That is such a great question. And is that how you sort of came up with all the different topics and chapters within the book as well?
Yes, to some extent. Anna and I met with a group of teacher educators from different parts of the country and different roles, different levels of experience. And we met a number of times as like a focus group and kept saying, well, what is it that you see individuals are struggling with? What do you see as those main topics? And then we wanted to validate that by talking to pre-service teachers and new teachers. What was your interpretation, Anna, of that journey?
We started to think about the way the year unfolds for a beginning teacher and how that year really unfolds long before that first day with students. So we started out with a calendar where we would list different activities, different milestones throughout the year of aspects of teaching that could be troublesome. So as we unfolded all of those ideas over the course of the year, then we came back to try to refigure them to see how common some of those issues were and refigured into our 10 common challenges.
That's a really neat way to go at it, having that calendar view and looking to see where are some challenges, where are some pain points that might occur during this time during this season of teaching, because we all know that those first few months are very critical, building those relationships, getting to know our students, getting that content out. And I love one of the chapters was, how do I teach a year's worth of content years worth of content? That was years worth of standards. I love the titles of the different sections in your book. They're so eye-catching and you want to go in and read it right away. So kudos to your authors who have some amazing titles in there. Those are fantastic. So let's talk about some of those sections. You said you have 10 different sections of common challenges. Which one, maybe two, which one or two is your favorite? Do you have a favorite? It's okay to have one. If so, what would it be and why? And let's start with Anna.
Well, Sam, I have to be this mom who can't really have a favorite child in my family here. But if I had to really think about this and had to talk about one, it would probably be relationships. Because for me, those relationships are the foundation of everything that you do. You have to have a positive relationship with the people that you work with. You have to build that relationship with your students. You also have to think about building a strong relationship with their families. You have to be able to build that partnership that's going to allow each of the members of that group to be successful. So for me, it's relationships.
Yes, I agree. Relationships 100% every day, all day. Yes, yes. Beth, what about you? What's one of your favorite sections?
Sam, that's a tough question. It's like choosing which of your children you love more. For me, in reflecting about what was written and thinking about where we are in our pandemic and how that's really changed the work lives of teachers, I would have to say it would be the work-life balance chapter, which is something that all new teachers and veteran teachers, for that matter, struggle with. How do we be our best selves, giving everything we can to the classroom and to students, and at the same time making time for ourselves? And
Right.
probably follow right behind that would be the pandemic chapter. And, we asked a certain group of authors, and Leanna being one of them, to write an extra piece. It was like an invitation piece because we were right in the throes of the pandemic when this book was being put together. And we realized that it's going to be a big change in education. I guess we're all wondering, will we ever go back to what we did before the pandemic? Will we always have some element of remote teaching? And Leanna was such a strong author in the other part of the book that we asked her for her insights and a number of others, to share their thoughts about how do we navigate the pandemic. So, Leanna, this might be a great question for you because you are in two different chapters.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Anna really, hit the point that I was going to say, that relationships are the key. And I don't say that that's one of my favorite chapters because that's where my article lies, but it is a key element. However, I'm trying to look at this from a different lens. And when I look at the chapters, even now as a refresher, I know that my pre-service teachers that I work with through the Honor Society, my chapter at Kane, they're always asking these outside questions. And they get so much from their professors, the methodologies, the pedagogies, the theory. And then there's these topics, these elements of things that they don't really get to see. And then they're thrown into the classroom and they're blindsided. It's like you walk into that wall and you go, oh no, that wasn't in, Dr. So-and-so's class. What do I do? So for me, I would have to say definitely the professionalism chapter and navigating the teacher evaluations. While that might seem a little bit more dry, it's so very important that the teachers that are new in the field hear the advice from others that have been here a while.
Yes.
And we're like, we got you. And it's okay that you don't know what you're doing or you're scared of your first teacher evaluation. And for them to just get little snippets and those takeaways, which is the style of the book, could really be helpful in even just calming their nerves. And something like that is just so critical. So I think that those two chapters are not just essential, but really special to the group and the audience that this book was intended for. So those are my reasons for picking those chapters. But just like Beth and Anna said, I can't really pick a favorite because I see just the need for every article and every chapter in it.
Yes. Now, we are still in the throes of the pandemic while we record today's session. When we think about the pandemic chapter, if you could pick out 3 pieces of advice, let's focus this in for our student teachers or our students who are going into field work about pandemic teaching. What do you guys think that would be? If you could boil down a couple of those pieces into like just 3 little pieces of advice, maybe one from each of you, what would that be if we were thinking about for our student and our field student teachers? Anna, I'd love to start with you on this one. So think about that pandemic chapter and our student teachers.
Absolutely. For student teachers, it's important, and this is important for student teachers, whether they're in the pandemic time or not. It's about shifting that perspective away from yourself and start to think about how your actions are relating to others, how they're being viewed by your students, how they might be viewed by your families, how they might be viewed by the administrators. You need to get out of your head and just act and let things happen and just take it in and get feedback, accept feedback from others, and try to look at it through their own eyes.
And I think maybe reading that evaluation piece might be helpful here because they're being evaluated by their college supervisor, by their cooperating teacher. Yeah, it's not a first-year teacher evaluation, but it is a way to think about that evaluation and feedback to make you an even better educator.
How does that feedback, how does my work look through someone else's lens?
I love that. That's so beautifully stated, Anna. Thank you. Beth, what about you? What's one piece of advice that you have for our student teachers that are student teaching through a pandemic?
I would probably say, reflecting on the book, a theme that is consistent through so many of the chapters is, there's support there for you. And as a student teacher, reach out to others. Reach out to the authors in the book. They are there. We include their email addresses, their Insta accounts, their Twitter accounts if they have them. There's a community of support. And also when you're really, that support also comes in the form of the downloadables. The book is just chock full of downloadables. So for every article, there is an associated piece that goes with it. So they can download it, they can use it right away in their classroom, they can modify it. And because the book was written by people all over the country and outside the United States, from rural, suburban, and urban settings, there's a lot there that they can go and they can use. So as a community of support, that's there for them. The book allows them to do that. And that's true not just now during the pandemic, but as we come out of the pandemic and as we shift back to whatever teaching is going to be for them, the community of support is never going to end. That's the constant.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. And I think for our student teachers, it's, let's give them permission to reach out to other teachers and educators to challenge and support and encourage you. We're all, I think education is an amazing helping community, and we all just want to help support you during your first year, during your student teaching and beyond, for sure. And Leanna, what about you? Same question for you. What is one piece that you're going to pull from for our student teachers when it comes to student teaching during a pandemic?
Again, it's so hard to just pick one thing. So I'll try to do two things real quick because they're connected. Students first, almost a little bit like what Anna was saying, students first. We have to make sure that we're checking in with our students, making sure that they're okay, just like we would in the classroom. If they're tired, if they're hungry, academics and everything else is just not going to happen. So always keep students first. And I would say for them personally, because when you work on yourself personally as a teacher, that makes you better for your students, is always keep learning, right? This pandemic has really taught us, and I could speak for myself in this, I was forced to look into things and learn things on my own and explore new areas in technology that I might not have being I was in the classroom, and I have my typical and usual go-tos and strategies. This really forced me to look outside the box. So I encourage them to always keep learning. It doesn't stop when you graduate. In fact, that's when your learning should really begin even more. So, keep that in mind and then keep your students first.
I love that. Thank you so much. I think all the advice that you gave, relationships first, let's connect with other educators, understanding how your lesson went, feedback through other people's lenses, and, thinking outside the box, trying some new things, going beyond your go-tos. These are all pieces of advice that are great now during a pandemic, but also outside of the pandemic world. And there's so much in this book, like you said, the freebies, the downloadables, the connecting with the authors of the individual chapters, and just the aspect of we are a community of learners. We're here to help support one another, and the pieces of advice that are given are so actionable in the sections. It's just something that not only new teachers can use, but like we said before, veteran teachers for sure can use the content, the ideas, and the strategies in this book. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. Anna, Beth, Leanna, thank you so much for dropping in today. Where can my listeners connect with you, and where can they find more about the New Teacher's Guide to Overcoming Common Challenges? And I'm going to kick it over to Anna.
Thanks, Sam. For our authors, you'll find that each of them provided their school positions. So if they did not provide their email or their social media, you can find them at those places. And you can find me at Anna_Q_Z on Twitter. And we're also Beth and I are working on developing a webpage and a Twitter account for the book, which will be coming soon.
Excellent. That's fun. And Beth, where can we find you on social?
My Twitter account is at E Wilkins, for this Beth. Beth is my nickname, EWILKINSNIU. And so I have my initials of my university right behind it. And also people can see the book. You can go to Amazon and put in the New Teacher's Guide. You can go to the Rutledge website and they have that information as well.
That was be my next question. Where can we find this book and purchase it? And Leanna, where can we connect with you? I know you're everywhere.
Yeah, I am on some different social media platforms. My Twitter handle is at Ms. Malinowski. I'll spell that because I know it's a handful, but it's MS and then MALINOWSKY. You can just search my name on Facebook. It's the same last name. And for Instagram, it is my personal one, but it's more professional. So I just use Leanna, LEANA, Rose, ROSE, and the number 4. I just wanted that one to be different. So you can connect with me there. And then from there, if anyone really wants to connect further, I would be happy to provide them with my email once they reach out to me so we can talk a little bit more intimately through emails and get some good ideas going.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. And remember, listeners, it's called The New Teacher's Guide to Overcoming Common Challenges. You can grab it over on Amazon or on the Rutledge site. And remember, friends, you have the EduMagic within you.
And there you have it, EduMagicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more EduMagic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram at sfessage. Until next time, you have the EduMagic within you.